good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I can see Edwina's here. Hello, beautiful, lovely lady. I can see Edwina. This must be your, I don't know, 5th, 6th week in a row. Dee Marie, I see you too. Hey, Edwina, tell me why you keep coming back here. Hey, Jackie, I see you too.
Because I've learned that you always learn something new.
Oh, you're a cutie. Thank you. Ain't that the truth?
You always learn something new.
Love that. So let me tell you a little bit that's new that I don't think I've drawn lots of people's attention to. Edwina, of course, I'm here to answer as I'm channeling or downloading from universal energy any of the solutions or answers that you may want or need to anything that you're facing. Dee Marie, I know that we do this too. So every single week we come together. And as you've seen before, there's either lots of people or only a very few people. When there's less, guess what? It's more time for you. So what would be one thing that you'd like a real breakthrough with? Anybody got any ideas? You don't have to come on out and say.
Well, I wasn't sure who you were asking.
Anyone.
Okay. I could use a real breakthrough on something, and that is on building my business. And it feels like I have different pathways open in front of me. And so, it's like picking a path seems like a really good idea. Just they're all calling my attention at the same time.
Jackie, I love the bravery in that question and the vulnerability as well in sharing. There are so many occasions where I've been stopped in my own tracks, undecided, because there are so many options. So what I'm going to suggest that we do right now is that we imagine that we're connecting deep to the core of Mother Earth. And taking a super nice big deep breath in. And as you breathe out, don't hold at the top for a pause. Breathe all the way out. Once you've breathed all the way out, exhaled everything, then do another push. Try to really expel everything that's in there. And then when you feel a little bit panicky, like, oh, I need to take a breath now, do so with grace. Ready? Nice big deep breath in, and then straight out, and then exhale even more, and then hold at the bottom for as long as you can. We just changed our brain waves, the frequency and the vibration in that one breath. And it's a really interesting trick about breathing in, not holding, exhaling as slowly and for as long as you possibly can, and then exhaling even more, and then holding at the bottom for as long as you possibly can before you're feeling like you're desperate for an inhalation. Now we're connected. We're connected inside. We've come back into our own body. We're embodying this moment. Now we can actually say to universal energy, thank you, 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 thank you. What are you thanking this divine inspiration for? The remembering of all of the times when you've actually chosen perfectly. Alrighty, so you know where I'm going with this. Whenever we're faced with a situation, we have to have this cellular memory that could be back generations of us knowing the right path and seeing the signs and being quiet and still and gracious and grateful enough and remembering being in the vibrational alignment of really appreciating the times when we have actually chosen the right path. Seems counterintuitive, and for those of us who want the darn answer, we want it now, we're impatient for it, and that actually really stops the brain from having the clarity that it needs around what is the very next best step. And so if you can take some nice big deep breaths in and breathe out and hold at the bottom, give yourself brain time to be clear, to be in this frequency, in this vibration that gives you an opportunity for this magnificent part of you that will work more efficiently. It will actually be more resourceful when you're in this state. And then you can ask of your higher self these questions about being guided on the best path. So the only other thing that I would say to you is that maybe you can write a list and maybe you can rate or rank against this list. You need to choose 2 paths, write them down and compare them to each other. And then when one appears naturally, organically, simply and beautifully, then if there's a 3rd path, you actually do it again with the 3rd path, the one that wins against the other one. It's a time-consuming process, but I think it's worthwhile. So I would say out of these 2, which feels better? I'll give you a really classic example. Positive Prime is an exceptional solution in a corporate environment, particularly in workplace wellness programs. And some would say that if we actually pursue that niche, we might be doing that at the detriment or in closing off to other niches that we could actually choose, including Positive Prime for school children. Maybe there's not enough of us for us to spread ourselves so thinly that we become the solution for workplace wellness as well as the solution for education. We'll just choose those 2. Which one feels better? Which one feels better? In the vibration that is you having inhaled and exhaled very slowly and held at the bottom, you can trust the actual answer that you're getting and the fight that you're having intellectually. One thing you might want to put at the top of a page is it's never either or. It's always and a priority. Now for us, it could be that as we pursue working with adults, we will actually come across less challenges of working with children. I'm talking institutional challenges. We actually did start to introduce Positive Prime to the school system here locally in our state. And one of the government institutions literally gagged us, like actually said we were not allowed to say publicly that Positive Prime was being used by teachers in schoolrooms to make children perform better. Politics. Now, I could have continued headlong down that road. It doesn't feel good to fight. Mother Teresa said it best. Instead of fighting against war, promote peace. Instead of fighting against depression, promote positivity. There's an obscene amount of money that has been devoted in a charitable sense to fixing some of these grand problems. If the same investment was made towards the solutions into actually something more elegant rather than fixing something, maybe we'd be in a different place as a humanity and as a world. So the second one, I would ask you, if you just put here, which feels better. So you could put feels better beside these two options. All right, so which one makes sense? Something just makes common sense. The biggest question I think we can all ask of ourselves, and I actually literally re-examined this because I'm reading an amazing biography at the moment. There's an incredible woman in Australia. Her name's Ronnie Khan, R-O-N-N-I-E Khan, K-A-H-M. And she was born and grew up in South Africa. I was born and grew up in Papua New Guinea. Similar, quite similar, not so different. She went and lived in a kibbutz in Israel for many years. I've lived and worked in Bali for many years, in Indonesia. I had a very interesting corporate career in London and New York. She's had a very interesting business. You wouldn't believe it. One of her businesses was outrageously successful. It was in special events. And it reminded me, I'd completely blocked it out for a year in my late teens, early 20s. During that period of time, I actually worked for the fanciest, biggest brand special events company in Australia, in Sydney. They did these wildly creative, fantastical parties for the most exclusive clients. And I worked with a man who ranted and raved, and screamed and yelled and behaved like a child. And he thought that was okay because he was flamboyant. It was so not okay. I know that 30 years later. Anyway, she actually poses a question in this book. What's your real agenda? One of those paths serves your real agenda. Now, if your real agenda is ego related and it's around fame, that's okay. Just be honest with yourself about what your real agenda is. If you want to do good and be good, one pathway emerges more brightly. It's stronger. It really is. So some of the other questions that I would ask as you compare these two is, for which one do I have more resources now? And that could actually indicate which one could be your priority before the other. Remember, at the top of the page, we put there is no either or, there's only ever and. I can do both. Maybe I just have to choose an order. Maybe one feeds the other and that becomes obvious. Some of the other questions that I ask is, and it's around this resourcefulness, which pathway would be more profitable sooner? And when I examine profitable endeavors, I definitely do not focus on the financial. I focus on the emotional and the physical. So all of us have grand dreams, otherwise we wouldn't be in this community. And all of us want to make a bigger difference, a brighter world together. I would say that that's pretty common about most of the people who positively prime themselves. So the interesting thing is that there is a pathway that is going to actually cause for there to be a loss for you that you won't be able to recover from in terms of time and or energy and or what it actually physically does to your relationships. And so it's interesting because I am really diving very deep into the pathway that we're going down here at Positive Prime, because we will be introducing the opportunity for our Positive Prime subscribers to actually join a higher level club. And in that, they'll be able to earn fractions of tokens, and those tokens are rewards, and you'll be able to use those rewards for wonderful health and well-being opportunities in our marketplace. And in the world that is tokenization or gamification using tokens which become a cryptocurrency, there's something called impermanent loss. It's a very interesting concept. But how does it apply to this particular exercise and us now? In pursuing one of the two paths, there'll either be more or less anxiety. There'll either be more or less panic. There'll be either more or less stress, right? Choose the one where there's more grace and elegance, lightheartedness and playfulness, cheerfulness, joy. That's what I would say. Your answer is in that, in terms of energy that you spend and what energizes you back, that profitability is a calculation you must make. You're going to spend time. One of them is eventually going to give you time back because you were able to scale it and you were able to actually introduce other people into the mix who could do some of the tasks, some of the aspects of the role that you're fulfilling. You can actually broaden your team. That's a calculation that you definitely want to make for yourself. One of them is actually going to allow you to utilize, to leverage your strengths and your gifts and your talents. And one is also going to allow you to learn and grow and develop and expand and enrich your strengths and gifts and talents. I think if you do this exercise, it'll become even more clear which is the right option for you at this moment in time. And you can do that with almost anything in life. Should I go to this party or that party? Should I go to this event or that event? Should I go to this conference or that conference? Should I go on this vacation or that vacation? Ask what your soul needs. Ask what will empower you. And then once you've actually really understood from that time and energy, physically, mentally, and emotionally, that calculation, you could actually literally in the resourceful area, like I've got these connections with these kinds of people, I've got these abilities, I've got these experiences, I've got, what are the resources that you have? Depending upon your resources, one pathway should become the natural choice. Something strange will happen in the process, as I've noticed, is that you will identify where the gaps are. And that will become what you are attracting from the universe, right? And so if there's a gap, and you're now aware of what's missing in order for you to achieve just beautiful success, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially, in one of those options, you will actually remember a time when you had access to whatever it is that you think's missing. And so I think you'll actually somehow manifest more solutions than you would have otherwise. A lot of people, I think, they pour themselves into new endeavors, or they expand upon an endeavor that's already underway. And they're so focused on figuring out what resources do they have, it's uncomfortable to look at what's missing. And in identifying what's missing, sometimes I think the truth is revealed, and that gives you more confidence so that you can have faith and trust around the choice that you've made or the choice that you'll be making. So for whatever it's worth, I hope that was helpful. Helpful?
Yeah.
Who said yes?
This is Jaleesa.
Hello, Jaleesa. How are you?
Hi, Cam. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful indeed. Thank you. All righty. Edwina, did that serve you? Are you glad you showed up today?
Yes, very much so.
See,
I like
that's
neither. It's not. It's neither or either. It's always an and when you're faced with those decisions, and then you start doing some processing and finding out what's better, what makes you feel better, and what's based. I like to. I do my best as I've gotten older. Try not me personally. Try not to go with what feels right, but to really go back to my core values and what I find right in my core values. Because when I find that I stick to those, I may not feel good at the moment, but in the end, I'm going to feel good. So I really try not to start off with my feelings because they change too much, especially when it gets hormonal.
yeah. Okay. I love that. That's just so honest, Edwina. That's
They
just
do.
so honest, Edwina. Actually, do you know what? I should put a point of clarification in there because it's a very nice distinction. I must admit, when I think about what feels better, I actually imagine the end result, the actual outcome, the consequences and implications of the outcome. I'm very specific around the consequences and implications of the outcome.
That's good.
That's actually the truth. It's not what feels better right now, because I've been known to have to take lots of action over the last 5 or 10 years that has definitely not felt better now, but eventually absolutely did feel better because I stayed committed to the consequences and implications of the outcomes.
I tell my kids this little statement that seldom is a decision not preceded by choice. Seldom is a consequence not preceded by both.
Totally. Absolutely, totally. And I think that a lot of people try to absolve themselves of accountability and responsibility for the outcomes in their lives. And it's a hard lesson for all of us to learn, that the more we really think about the long-term or short-term, and indeed both, not either or, and the long-term and the short-term consequences and implications of the outcomes, I think that sometimes we are inspired to actually take more action sooner, faster, and that serves us, right? Edna, you said that was good as well. Jackie, I saw a quizzical look on your face. Like, yeah, no, I don't agree with that at all.
Well, I didn't get what you were saying, right? And I do love that statement, Edwina, that you said. So that was lovely. I wrote it down. Seldom is a decision not preceded by a choice. Seldom is a consequence not preceded by both. Yeah, don't know where that came from. If that's an original.
From me.
Well,
That's
there we go.
original.
Okay.
That's an original.
All right. And
That's an
Edwina-ism.
Do you know
I
what?
like
We should create a little JPEG that has that Edwina and your name, Edwina King, and then everybody can upload that as a personal image inside their collection for Positive Prime. There we go. We'll ask Mayumi to do that. Oh, and Mayumi is here. Alrighty, so
whatever you said right before that, I just missed it. It was like I didn't quite jive in my brain, and now I didn't write that down. So I hope you remember.
Okay, cool. What I was ostensibly saying was, when you're asking yourself which feels better, it's in the knowing, it's in the context of the thinking about what's the outcome I really want, what's the ultimate outcome, and much more importantly, and it's a weird much more importantly, and what are the consequences and implications of that outcome? Because that actually ties in with what Edwina is saying about our values. Often we think about our ultimate goals or these outcomes that we actually really want to bring about, but usually they're inspired, or hopefully they're anchored to our values. That's what's really driving having the manifestation of our, the vision is really bringing to life our values. And that's why I was suggesting that everybody examines, and what's your real agenda? What's your real agenda? Because if your real agenda is actually to be in service of others, there'll be a pathway that's immediate that will be more in service, more fully of others. That's probably a part of your own values, right? If you have values around family time, if you have values around learning, one of those pathways is going to literally dunk you in the deep end, and you're going to learn real fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Been doing a lot of that lately. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And do you know what? Sometimes we're up for that, and sometimes we're actually not. We're exhausted and exasperated. And it's okay for us to be either or, right? It's okay for us to actually step back and say, at the moment, I'm exhausted. I can't make this decision. That's why the breathing is super important. We know from brain scans, and we know from, say, this device, you'll see that you have different brain dynamics. If you breathe in very fully, you breathe out super slowly, extended. Once you're all the way out, and then you push even more out. And then if you just stay at the bottom without breathing back in, without the inhalation, you literally cause the actual frequencies inside your brain to change.
Hopefully in a good way.
It's an awesome way. It is the most efficient way for your brain to actually operate. So some of the things that we've been doing, even in our own research, is we've been able to prove, with the help of the people at the University of Technology, Sydney, that when you watch a positive prime session at the highest speed, you actually drop into a brain dynamic that is most useful for creative and resourceful solutions-oriented thinking. Your brainwaves literally are changed.
That's good to know, because I had misunderstood something that was said in a different meeting about that there was more effective watching it at a slower speed. And I think it just
entirely, it depends on what it is that you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want your brain dynamics to change such that you are in the frequencies like the theta, in other words, you're out of beta. Beta is actually very taxing on your brain. You don't want to be in high beta thinking for the majority of time. And unfortunately, the majority of human beings in the Western world who are running businesses are in high beta all the time. And it's very damaging to your brain. It's actually physiologically damaging. And so there's a lot of things that one must do in order to give your brain the opportunity for detoxification, and also for experiencing other, let's call them brain states. When you watch a positive prime session at a fast speed for at least 3 minutes, your brain has the opportunity to have this shift in the brain dynamics that are healthier for your brain.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'm glad that was worth me showing up for, because I didn't catch the context on the last one. So thank you, Kim.
Pleasure. Yeah, it's very, very, very cool. It's very powerful. It's a pretty profound thing for us to be able to say about positive primes. Positive primes actually bring that about. There are very few activities on the planet Earth that bring that about, an actual shift in brain dynamics inside 3 minutes by you doing something passive, and that's watching a positive prime session at a higher speed. Right? It's phenomenal.
Okay, and the tests are done on uncustomized sessions, I'm assuming. They're done on basic sessions, not customized ones.
Absolutely. The scientific research in this phase is our standard positive prime sessions, which is really our formula of the way that we select the 800 images. And what we have found is that there is something really rather sensational happening from a scientific point of view, sensational, when people actually see images with words on them. So our positive statements on our backgrounds are actually having an even more beneficial effect on the brain. And we're actually proving that. It's
Cool.
remarkable. Just before I go, I just want to draw to everyone's attention who's sharing Positive Prime out there, that most people don't go to the trouble of clicking on getting started. And when you do that, you can come down here and download a free PDF guide. You can also, and this is very interesting, you can also watch a Positive Prime session. This is one, Jackie, where you definitely would want to watch it on a lower speed. Let me just speed it up and I'll show you, because we want to get past the intro bit. So in this particular session, we actually teach you all of the critical components of Positive Prime. So we teach you that, yes, you are more productive with Positive Prime. That's scientifically proven because of the clinically evaluated techniques that are integrated into our formula. There are aspects of a Positive Prime session that you can't bring about in any other way. And this particular session on Speed 1 is literally teaching you the fundamentals around Positive Prime. So it's actually a nice class on how to get the most out of Positive Prime that we deliver via a Positive Prime session. And what we were able to prove scientifically with some research was that when you absorb content inside a Positive Prime session, you're more likely to comprehend it, retain it, and recall it. And if we gave you some puzzles, you were more likely to solve those puzzles after you've watched a Positive Prime session, based upon the way that we actually put a Positive Prime session together, like the actual.
Okay, well, I'm going to go watch that now. Because you're right. I'm one of those people who skipped that, missed that part of the getting started on my Positive Prime account.
I
So
love that.
I'll leave you to answer. There's a question from Jaleesa in the chat, just in case you can't see it. And so thank you.
What's the difference between visualization and positive priming?
Yeah.
You know what? That's a brilliant question, Jaleesa. Is visualization part of positive priming? So we've actually just done a collaborative effort with the people at Focus Come. And do you know what their actual clinical experience has been? Those people who are long-term meditators who are being evaluated during meditation with, you know, devices like EEG, they actually have deeper meditations. Their actual brain waves are much more beneficial to them after they positive prime themselves. So if you positive prime yourself prior to a meditation session, it actually makes a difference, a positive difference. That is remarkable. They're actually publicly saying that as well. That's really interesting. And so what I would suggest to you is that visualization is more like an imagination exercise. What I do is I go to the effort of finding via Google Images or finding via websites a visual representation and illustration of what it is that I'm trying to visualize, right? So let's just say I'm trying to visualize relaxing on a beach in French Polynesia, in Tahiti. I will go and get those images and I will upload them and I will put them into my personalization process inside Positive Prime. And then what we know is that when you are watching a Positive Prime session and you're in a state of surrender, your other than consciousness is having these seeds, which are your personal images, planted, nurtured, watered. It's like you're actually breathing life into your goals. So you can use your Positive Prime sessions as a vision board and also as a very active gratitude journal. So anything that you're grateful for, you can actually upload those personal photographs into your Positive Prime session. And so next week, we can probably go through a little bit more of that. What I actually do find is that I boost my visualization abilities, my imagination. I get these incredible bursts of very creative ideas when I'm watching a Positive Prime session, particularly one of the super mixes. And I have learned to press pause and go and take action on whatever that inspired idea was. And then I come back to watching the session later. But I find that in the process of watching Positive Prime sessions, I literally had these like sparks, popcorn going off in my brain. I go take action immediately. And on that note, love you all, and I'll speak to you next week.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love
All
you
right,
too. Thank
ciao.
you.
Okay, bye.